What's going on, everybody? So today I'll be filming my videos sideways so that I can post them onto YouTube as well, so that you can go back and view the videos at your own leisure. With that said, I'll still be posting on Instagram so that you're aware that they are going on and that you can view them on there as well. So if you've stuck with me for 365 days, we're approaching that date now. And for the past 365 days, I've been talking about the stock market. But now I want to get into the cryptocurrency space. So to do that, I'm going to start by doing a deep dive into Bitcoin. I want to talk about why Bitcoin is important, the opportunity that lies within Bitcoin, and why Bitcoin could be a 10x on your money in the next few years. So for starters, for day one of our Bitcoin deep dive, I want to talk about the global outstanding debt, the debt in the United States, and how we can pay off that debt. So for starters, as of Q1 of 2020, global debt to GDP was 331%, which is equal to $285 trillion. So the total outstanding debt, not just of the United States, but of all countries around the world, is 331% of the global GDP. So we have reached levels of unsustainable debt, and all of this debt is denominated in various fiat currencies. So some debt is denominated in US dollars, some debt is denominated in euros, and other debt is denominated in other different currencies around the world. So just a side note, the global debt to GDP ratio is increased by 40% since the 2008 Great Financial Crisis. So a lot of people think that the economy has really improved since 2008, but in reality, we've just layered over more debt to kind of get things going in the right direction. So now we're at 331% levels of debt to GDP, and it appears that things have gotten to an unsustainable level. So now if we turn and look at the United States debt to GDP is now at 132.6% following the response to the global pandemic that has been going on throughout the world. So currently the United States has $26 trillion in debts, and this is not normal, and it wasn't always like this. Back in 1980, the debt to GDP ratio was only 34.62%. So back when your parents were growing up, the debt to GDP level was a lot lower than what it is today. So we're at these elevated levels of debt, and it appears that we're going to have to print more money in order to get us out of this recession/depression that COVID-19 has put us in. So I want to quickly go over how we can pay off this debt, because obviously we're not the only ones with debt. We do have a lot of debt, but it's like, what are ways we can pay off this debt? So the first measure would be austerity. And that simply means that we stop spending as much. So everyone tightens their pants. The United States stops spending as much money on military and the police and other different things. And we start just saving more. We stop running a deficit. We start exporting more stuff. We stop importing and consuming less stuff. And the reason why austerity doesn't work is because it causes a lot of business to shut down. It causes the economy to recoil. Just think about it. If everyone stops buying cars, then the auto industry goes out of business. All those people lose their jobs, and then they stop consuming the other things that they were consuming. So if the auto salesperson stops selling cars and making money selling cars, then he's not going to buy the basketball that he was going to buy from Walmart, and then maybe someone who makes basketballs is going to lose their job. So it's just like this negative compounding effect that happens when you try to use austerity, and when we're already at these elevated levels of debt, it's just not really something that's feasible. And additionally, what politician is going to win an election where they're running on the campaign of, hey, let's spend less and let's work really hard? So the second way you can pay off debt is to default on it. So that is a possibility, but what that does is that raises interest rates for future borrowing. So just think about it. If you lend your friend $100 and he says, hey man, I'm not going to be able to pay back that $100. I can only pay you $50. So that is a debt default and then a debt restructuring where he agrees to pay me 50. But next time he asks me to lend him money, I'm either just not going to give it to him because I know he's not going to pay me back, or I'm going to make him borrow at a much higher interest rate. So let's say at first I was going to charge him 10% interest and he was going to pay me back 110. Now I'm going to say, look, you got to pay me 20% interest. So now in order for him to borrow $100, he's going to have to pay me back $120. So that is also likely not an option to default on our debt, because right now interest rates in the United States are below 1%. I think they might be at zero or very, very close to zero. And in some places like in Europe, they're actually negative. So rates are really low right now, and that's being done artificially so that corporations and governments can pay off their debt at low interest rates. Because if you have to pay off $1 million, it's a lot easier to do that at a negative rate or at a 0% interest rate than it is to do at a 20% interest rate, which is more akin to what a regular consumer would get with a credit card. So option one and option two are out of the picture. So what do we have? We have options 3 and options 4. So option 3 is to print the money. So when you print money, you devalue the currency, but you can pay off your debt. So with the stroke of the pen, the Federal Reserve can issue trillions and trillions of dollars. Now, what does that do? Yes, we can use that money to pay off our debt, but because we're printing more of the currency is worth less for each individual person. So who does this hurt? This hurts savers, this hurts investors, this hurts people that are generally just holding US dollars. And it hurts people at the bottom more than it hurts people at the top. Because if you have $1 billion and your wealth is devalued by half, you still have $500 million. But if you only have $1 million and you're trying to retire, and then the value of your money is cut in half, and you only have $500,000, you probably can't retire. So that's the issue with printing money, is that the effects aren't immediate, but it does take away money and basically tax people really without representation, because there's no vote that's saying, hey, I'm going to agree to raise taxes and pay those taxes. They're just doing it by debasing the currency. So that's the one option that we've already seen being put to use in response to the global pandemic. And the last thing is going to be a wealth transfer. So that would just be raising taxes on the rich and having them put the money into the system to pay off the debt. Now, this is very unpopular with the wealthy, and as you know, a lot of wealthy people already, they move their money to offshore accounts so that they can avoid taxes, or if they think that they're going to be taxed on their wealth, they'll move out of US dollars into another asset. So this sounds good on paper, but it's very tricky to do in practice because everyone acts in their own self-interest. That's economics 101. So if all the wealthy people hear that they're going to raise taxes by 40%, everyone is going to leave. They're going to get their money and they're going to run. So that is not really going to spur innovation and American growth, and it's going to try to basically force people to leave our country because they don't want to pay these exorbitant taxes. So when you look at all these options, the most likely is going to be to print money. And that's what's going to lead us into Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a fixed amount of value. Unlike fiat currencies, which can be printed and are at the will of central banks, Bitcoin has a finite amount of Bitcoin. There will be no more than 21 million Bitcoin ever created. And so this finite value, which is similar to the principles of gold, is what makes Bitcoin valuable in this period of intense debt levels. So as always, you should not buy or sell stock or cryptocurrency based solely off what you hear on this page. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only. And as always, Godspeed.